part of society, but they also form the bedrock of humanitarian development.
Hello and welcome to the Reporter, a news and current affairs program that goes beyond the headlines, bringing reporters from the field to give in-depth analysis on unfolding issues, correspondent perspective, and balanced, credible, and comprehensive storytelling. Welcome once again. I am Anieti Patrick. On this edition of the program, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, has reaffirmed the federal government's commitment to strengthening the security and information environment necessary for peaceful, credible, and transparent elections in 2027. The minister stated this in Abuja at the 8th Public Lecture Impact Series and Awards of Excellence organized by Blueprint Newspaper Limited with the theme Security Challenges and Integrity of Nigeria's 2027 Elections. Our correspondent, Sadia Yakubu, tells us more.
The Peace Accord, organized by the National Peace Committee in partnership with the Kuka Center, seeks to commit political parties and candidates to peaceful, responsible, and issue-based campaigns. The former head of state expressed concern over the growing tendency of political campaigns to abandon manifestos. The gathering provided a platform for stakeholders to examine security threats and other challenges that could undermine the credibility of 2027 polls. For Blueprint newspaper, the annual lecture remains an avenue for informed public discourse on issues of national importance. Speaking on behalf of the minister, the managing director of Blueprint newspaper, Sadisu Umar, reaffirmed the organization's commitment to responsible journalism and public dialogue in advancing national development and accountability.
For this year's lecture, Security Challenges and Integrity of the 2025 election was carefully choosing to address the current priorities centering around national safety and was also choosing as our modest contributions to the lingering security challenges bothering our dear nation, which of course is a source of concern to all of us.
The Etudupe His Royal Highness Abubakar Yahya, represented by Abadu Onawu, urged traditional institutions to promote peace, dialogue, and responsible political participation and stressed the importance of unity and peaceful engagement in sustaining Nigeria's democratic process.
Nigerians seated here, that there is no alternative to one indivisible Nigeria, as Nigerians do not have a nation other than this, and that no nation in the world has ever risen to position of accomplishments without challenges.
Chairman of the occasion, Abdulaziz Yari, cautioned politicians against exploiting insecurity for electoral advantage. Yari called for insecurity to be treated as a national challenge rather than a campaign weapon, emphasizing the need for collective action to address the situation.
As a people, we're the security, and as well we're in insecurity. Leaders, people, it's not the business of our gallant security or security architecture only. Politicians, elites, and ordinary man on the streets were all part of it.
As preparations for 2027 gather momentum, stakeholders say protecting Nigeria's democracy requires collective responsibility for political actors, security agencies, the media, and voters. Sadia Yakubu, Global TV News. The gathering provided.
Well, there you have it, and we hope to see how insecurity can be tackled ahead of this election come 2027. But joining me to have this conversation in the studio is Sadia Yakubu, who was on ground for Global TV. Hello, Sadia. It's good to have you join me on the program.
My pleasure, Anita Patrick. Good evening.
Amazing. Let's jump on this conversation. We know 2027 is here and a whole lot of concerns, of course. And we know the issue of insecurity is still threatening Nigeria across, despite some rescue operations we've seen in some part of the country. How confident can Nigerians be ahead of 2027 general election with the issue of insecurity is still around the corner for Nigerians?
You know, Anita Patrick, when it gets to that moment, that's the electoral time, election period, you tend to see that this insecurity issue will just disappear until after election before you see it coming up again, one after the other. Places like Zamfara, Sokoto, Kebbi, they already have this insecurity challenge, including my own state. So we already have this insecurity challenge. But once it's election period, we'll just come together and then to vote. So for me, I think it's, instead of giving that energy during only election, I think we should just generalize the whole thing so that the country will be secured, more secure than before.
Okay, so let's look at the fact that you said it seemed to be like a created atmosphere, if that's the word, because of course we need a safe space, we need a safe environment for Nigerians to come out in their numbers to vote if you want to change the narrative of things. And one thing is, how can Nigerians prevent politicians from exploiting them through the vote buying, which has become a norm during elections? And then the fact that they also look at the skeletons that will to manipulate them, say, okay, if you vote for me,
I'll give you
it becomes a vote sales, the vote market at the point now, it becomes a buying and selling process. So how can Nigerians prevent politicians now from manipulating them into all of these things ahead of the election?
Talking about manipulation, let me just use the North as an example.
Okay.
All right. In the northern part of Nigeria, you see that you get to see politicians coming during election and then giving rice, giving spaghetti, giving salt, and then rubber, this plastic rubber bowl. And then if they are giving you cash, you shouldn't be more than 5,000. But because there is poverty already down there, they know the weakness of these people.
So they take advantage.
They take advantage.
So that's the manipulative way of thinking.
Yeah. So now, when before campaign, pre-campaign, post-campaign, so before they start election, there's campaign. You try to tell these people that, please, when politicians come, they give you something like this, don't accept. And if you want to accept, vote for whom you want. Vote for a credible person.
Process.
Don't say, okay, because you're giving me money or because you're doing this, I would vote for you. Because now, I mean, you're selling your vote for the next 4 years. That means if anything is happening,
that's like a bet mark being sold.
Exactly, you can't complain. So you're selling your votes. And I think recently or yearly, there have been campaigns about vote buying.
Okay.
Although it has reduced
yes.
now. Yeah, vote buying has reduced now compared to
before. How we had it. Are you sure it has reduced? Well, let's look at the facts from the fact that we had it in the Australian election. We saw how that also played out. Yeah. It was part of also the concerns raised by observers in London. But let's hope that, like you mentioned, it doesn't play out in a manipulative way, does not come to sell the mind of people to sell their consciences. Well, thank you so much. But I'll still have to hold you back because it's still election issues and we have a whole lot to talk about. Let's move away from that conversation around that and tell you what is saying ahead of the election. Is still talking election matters, where as political activities are moving forward and gathering momentum ahead of the 2027 general elections. Former head of state and chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, has advised politicians against character assassination, personal attacks, and inflammatory rhetoric. Abdulsalami, who was represented by the former Chief of Defense Staff, General Martins Luther Agwe, retired, gave the advice in Abuja at the signing of the National Peace Accord ahead of the official commencement of campaigns for the presidential and National Assembly elections. Sadia Yakubu again tells us more.
The Peace Accord, organized by the National Peace Committee in partnership with the Kuka Center, seeks to commit political parties and candidates to peaceful, responsible and issue-based campaigns. The former head of state expressed concern over the growing tendency of political campaigns to abandon manifestos and policies for name-calling, insults and attacks on the character of opponents. He warned that such rhetoric could poison public discourse, inflame political tensions, and create an atmosphere capable of triggering intimidation and violence during the electoral process.
It is an accord that calls on political parties and candidates to compete fairly on the issue of ideas, policies, and programs.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Josh Amopiten, called on political parties and candidates to make issues policies and programs the center of their campaigns ahead of the 2027 general elections. He said the National Peace Accord provides a framework for fair competition, respectful debate, peaceful mobilization, and the protection of voters and electoral institutions. He urged political actors to reject hate speech, incitement, misinformation, and narratives capable of triggering violence and undermining electoral integrity.
Today, signing of the first National Peace Accord therefore marks a critical milestone. We are exactly 5 months away from the 2027 general election.
The Inspector General of Police, Olatunji Disu, who was represented by Umar Nadada, said the credibility and peaceful conduct of an election are not determined on election day alone, but depend largely on the conduct of political parties, candidates, supporters, and other stakeholders through the electoral process. The police chief therefore called for political campaigns to be a contest of ideas, policies, programs, and competing visions for the future of the country, rather than a platform for intolerance, incitement, ethnic polarization, or violence.
Nigerian police force recognize that democracy requires rigorous political competition. We have no interest in determining who wins or loses an election. Our interest is ensuring every Nigerian is able to participate in the democratic process.
Bishop Matthew Kukah urged political party leaders, presidential candidates, campaign councils, and spokespersons to make the concern of Nigerians center of their campaigns, warning them to shun fake news, personal abuse, and inflammatory statements.
The Peace Committee has continued to do extraordinarily good work. That much I can say. We were not set up, to monitor elections and make sure that elections are. We were set up to encourage Nigerians. And I want to go.
With the 2027 campaigns now set to commence, stakeholders are demanding a new standard of political engagement, one driven by ideas, accountability, and issues that matter to Nigerians. Sadia Akubu, Global TV News.
And of course, what a beautiful way to have that peace accord signed, and we hope that pans out into how it plays out for 2027 general election. I still have Sadia Yakubu with me in the studio. Sadia, with the beautiful way we saw political actors hugging themselves and signing, one will wish that that is the way the campaign will get on the way. Yeah. Because of course, like they've called for character assassination. What's your take on that? What do you think it should look like as we build up to the 2027 election?
Anyways, for me, what they signed was peace accord, right, between all the political parties, their various aspirants, presidential down to the state level. All right, so if you say peace accord, that means you agree not to do hate speech, shun violence, no discrimination, and the other etc. All right, so if they could work with what they signed, because it's a different thing to sign.
It's another thing to act on it.
It's another thing to act on it.
So the concern here is, one will want to ask, how would the police, how would the judiciary, if case may be, to bring them in, and INEC ensure that these political actors who have signed this peace accord keep to their commitments and limit their campaigns to issue base. That's one thing. Is there a way you think INEC can work around this, or should there be a constitution?
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the whole thing, because if it's Nigeria, don't worry, they will sign and sign and sign. Although it's not 100%, out of 100, let's say 70 would work for peace.
Yeah.
But 30%,
You're not sure?
I'm not sure that they will shake the whole process.
But this is actually supposed to be a unified force, because if you sign, that means you're agreeing to unity, and then it should be a peaceful.
How many of them have done what they signed? How many of them, what they agreed on?
Have kept their words.
How many of them have kept to that, to the peace?
But I think it is high time where real accountability to commitment should start coming in. I don't know because you were there on ground.
I was there.
So you should talk to us about what the commitment was, because it should go beyond the political actors. It should also get the supporters. So is there a way to for politicians to also speak to their supporters?
Yes, I think the INEC chairman during the event, he made that point there. The INEC chairman, the police, the representative of IG of police, and Bishop Kukah. All right, they made it known to the politicians that they should, what they've signed today, their supporters
be held accountable for it.
Yes, they should go back and then step everything down to their supporters.
To understand.
They want peace during election, because there is more after election.
Of course.
And Nigeria
is still one.
So
I like the way they put that thing, so it gives an edge for one to understand the dimension and how things should run. It was really an amazing time with you, Sadia. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing how this pans out as we go up to 2027 election. Right. A pleasure. Well, let's move away and talk about other issues happening aside electoral matters. This is the build up to 2027 election, and of course, Nigerians are looking forward to having a level playing field and a peaceful nation, because Nigeria is one. Let's turn our focus and talk to us about some concerns, which is one thing that has gone in terms of our finances, our spending. Well, as concerns grow over the transparency and accountability of public spending, the International Budget Partnership Nigeria has concern over continued use of multiple and overlapping budgets. Country Director of the organization, Olayinka Babalola, stated this in Abuja while addressing the media on the inaugural Pulse Summit 2026. Samuel Odi tells us more.
The organization made the submission in Abuja as it plans for its inaugural Pulse Summit 2026, which is expected to bring together government officials, legislators, civil society organizations, development partners, frontline actors, and community representatives to examine Nigeria's budget implementation process and identify gaps affecting critical sectors, particularly healthcare. The summit is focused on strengthening public participation and accountability in the management of government resources, with discussions centered on how citizens can better understand, monitor, and demand answers on budgetary decision and spending. The International Budget Partnership Nigeria says the existence of multiple budget and overlapping implementation cycles creates challenge for effective monitoring, making it difficult to determine which budget is being implemented, what has been released, and whether approved funds are reaching intended beneficiaries.
The government officials, development partners in the room, how exactly they're experiencing the budget. What kind of services are being delivered or not delivered. So bringing that evidence. And even where there's success stories, we'll share them. And so the idea is that with that evidence from the communities and with the fiscal evidence being the numbers that you get from the budget itself, from the budget implementation.
Olayinka Babalola highlighted some of the successes recorded by the International Budget Partnership Nigeria, while also drawing attention to the challenges created by Nigeria's multiple budget system and its implication for transparency and effective implementation. The summit also examined persistent gaps in sectors such as healthcare, where the organization says stronger tracking of allocation and actual expenditure is needed to ensure that public funds translate into improved service for citizens.
Trying to achieve with this summit, when we say the labs, if you look, or of course when you read through and listen to what we're trying to do in terms of sectors, we've been a bit intentional in picking certain sectors, specific sectors to actually look at for this pilot of the Pulse Summit. And this is something we're looking at, hoping to do annually. This being the inaugural edition, we started off with this particular 5 labs.
With Nigeria operating multiple budget cycles and citizens increasingly demanding transparency in the use of public resources, the International Budget Partnership Nigeria says stronger coordination, clearer budget information, and active citizen monitoring remain critical to closing the gap between what government approves and what citizens ultimately receive. Samuel Odi, Global TV News.
Of course, joining me right now in the studio is Samuel Odi, who was on ground for this report. It's good to talk about public spending, Samuel. So one want to ask, how can Nigeria effectively track public spending? Because it seems to be public office holders, we've seen issues of fake agency, of course, which is a concern. And then we see multiple overlapping in terms of budget issues. So how can Nigeria look forward and make it difficult for budget to be seen in that line of thoughts?
Thank you so much, Anita. It has to start with the individuals, that's the general public, asking questions and following through from implementation to how much was implemented, and then looking at agencies now, how much was supposed to go to a certain agency. Then from that point, you would know it has 3 stages: implementing, approval, and disbursement. Now, sometimes it gets implemented, it gets approved, and then disbursement gets to be a problem. And sometimes when this disbursement gets set to happen, sometimes what was approved is not what is being given to these agencies. For citing an example now with the Ministry of Health, where the minister came out in last year's budget saying that just 36 million was given out of over 200 plus million. Now questions arise like, okay, what happened to the other part of this budget? And then why was what was approved not, given? And it goes beyond what is available at the time. So what the general public needs to do now is to follow up from just when the implementation happened down to approval and then down to implementing what those monies are for. And when you get to those agencies, questions need to be asked. Okay, these resources, show us what you actually did with this money, because it's meant to serve the general public. So when the general public get involved fully with what's happening, it goes beyond the Senate approving trillions of naira. And then also another call by the general public is the fact that they want Nigerians' budgetary system to be an annual stuff, so as we won't be running padded
like a multiple overlapping
so
process.
It's going to be hard for the general public to be able to track and also ask questions that they're required to ask.
Amazing facts. We hope to see how this pans out, Samuel, because of course it's one thing to put out the budget and that's to follow through and ensure that accountability speaks more. Well, of course, it's been an amazing time. Thank you so much, Samuel, for your time as always. Well, there it is, the reporter, of course, like we say, in-depth analysis, and that's what our reporters had to bring to the front burner, and that makes the size of the program today. The reporter, thank you for staying with us and watching. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365, Star Times channel 276, as well as on Free TV. We are also active across all social media platforms as displayed on your screen using @Global TV NG. I am Anita Patrick. Thank you for watching.
Social media. It's not just about the platforms themselves. To the preservation of the national unity and democratic stability.
Water is life, water is an essential service, and we must have to carry out the residents.
Local communities are not only vital to the growth of society, but they also form the bedrock of humanitarian development.